Good morning. What are you making today, Miss Martha? I am making red velvet biscotti. Now you can tell it's Miss Martha when you're walking through my kitchen and I got that big bowl out. I'm getting ready to make biscotti because I always do a triple batch. Now don't be alarmed when you look at, oh, there's like 32 ingredients and you talk about you're going to be in the kitchen for 4 hours. I enjoy watching you, but I'm not doing that. You can always cut the recipe down. All you need are eggs, milk, and oil, a flour, baking powder, salt, a flavoring. So if you're going to do almond or pecan, some kind of extract flavor, vanilla, almond extracts, and you also need some little add-ins, whatever kind of nuts or chips you want to put in it. You don't have to. You can bake it just like a hard cookie, like a vanilla wafer. It could just be a vanilla flavor with no add-ins. It's the baking that takes the time, though. 45 minutes baked, let it cool. 45-minute bake, let it cool. So if you're not doing multiple trays, that's just, so you've got under 2 hours that you're in the kitchen. But you're not tied to the kitchen. It's not like you're making a muddle. You got to sit there and stir it so that it doesn't stick to the pot. You can go off and do other things. Today, once I get everything organized and rocking and rolling, and I'll pause the video so y'all don't have to sit here for 4 hour video like a live feed from Facebook. I can go off and be crocheting my sweaters for my chihuahuas or snuggling my chihuahuas and watching BritBox or finishing up Fallout over there on, Amazon Prime or whatever channel my son's got that hooked up for me to watch because I love me some Walter Goggins. Anyway, back to the red velvet biscotti. Let's run through our ingredients. You're always going to, with biscotti, you're going to have a wet bowl ingredients, a dry bowl ingredients, the add-in ingredients, the little topping ingredients, and this one, not all of mine have a drizzle, but this one's going to have a drizzle because it's red velvet. You're going to have the little chocolate flavor, the red cake, and you're going to need the icing, a cream cheese like icing, for it to look like red velvet cake or to taste like red velvet cake for you. So my largest bowl will be the wet bowl because everything else has to fit into that bowl. So let's go through the wet ingredients first. I know you think sugar, huh, Miss Martha? Yeah, because it's going to dissolve when the other wet ingredients add to it. So sugar is going to go in the wet bowl. I've got brown sugar. I've got eggs. I've got a cherry drink. I've got red food coloring. I've got raspberry flavoring. And I've got a cherry Kool-aid liquid. We have honey. We have black walnut oil, goat milk, and a Nutella type brand. Any brand will do. It's a hazelnut chocolate spread. So that's the wet ingredients. Let me see if I can move those over out of the way. That will go in the wet bowl, which is the very large bowl. My dry ingredients are, you have baking powder and salt, all-purpose flour, nutritional yeast, flaxseed. I also have protein powder and collagen powder because these are more of a, my husband really likes it because he swears that collagen keeps his joints from hurting when he goes out and rides his bike and stuff like that, or working all day up and down the ladders as an electrician. There's also Ovaltine, which has healthy ingredients in it as well, healthy nutritional vitamins and whatnot. There's a powdered milk and white chocolate Jello powder. So those are the dry ingredients. Let's move those out the way. Oops. My add-ins for my red velvet biscotti, I've got walnuts, more walnuts, macadamia nuts, more macadamia nuts. I've got white chocolate chips, more white chocolate chips, and I've got the little mini semi-sweet chocolate chips. So those are my add-ins. Now, if you look at the digital cookbook, it will show you all the proportions and the ingredients of it. I'm just trying to keep the video from going so long. I'm gonna pause it in a minute when I finish going through everything and get things in the bowls, and we'll pick back up and show you how to make the dough, how to bake it, how to slice it, how to finish it off. But let's finish through the ingredients. Before you bake it, once you've made your loaves and you've shaped into the loaves, it's on your parchment lined baking sheet. It has to have the little biscotti crunch on top of it. So you've got your raw sugar and you have your coarse sea salt. So that's a little topping. That goes on before it's baked. And when it is baked once, it's been sliced, it's baked a second time, and it's cooled thoroughly because you don't want your little drizzle to run right off of it. You're going to make up your drizzle. I found these. You may not have them in your market. It is a cream cheese chip. You can use just a block of regular cream cheese, a half of an 8 ounce, so 4 ounces of cream cheese, a stick of margarine or a stick of butter. I've got margarine and powdered sugar. So you could use regular cream cheese instead of having to use the cream cheese chips if you can't find those. So if you'll give me a second, you go get yourself a cup of coffee. I'm going to get everything in the bowls. I'm going to go ahead and get my baking sheets lined with parchment paper. My oven is already preheating at 330 degrees, and we'll be rocking and rolling in a minute with red velvet biscottis. Hang in. I'll be right back. Okay, everything is in its proper place. We have to mix it. I'll see if I can show you. Okay, it's a liquid bowl. Dry ingredients, our add-ins, our topping to go on the loaves once the loaves have been made. Right there. And then I've got to melt the margarine and the cream cheese chips, and then we'll whip in the powdered sugar to make the drizzle once everything is baking. I've left me out some plain flour because obviously when you're rolling out the loaves, to keep it from sticking to the pastry board or the countertop. So if you'll give me a minute, I'll mix up everything nicely in the wet bowl so it's all incorporated. I'll mix up everything in the dry bowl on its own, and then we'll start adding the dry bowl into the wet bowl. So we'll pick back up in a minute. Everything's gonna be red in my kitchen about time. I finished this, my counter, my hands, my sink. Okay, we're starting to mix the dry into the wet. This is going to take a little while. I shouldn't have pruned the hedges yesterday because my shoulders are already tired from pruning down the hedges out there with the hedge clipper. So, Miss Martha needs a second here. I've almost got it. The last of the flour going in here. Yeah. Gotta make sure it's got a dough consistency. It's gotta be nice and thick. It can't be runny like red velvet cake mix would be, because we're doing biscotti cookie dough. So it's gotta be a nice thick dough. When I finish getting the last of this flour incorporated nicely, we'll go for the add-ins. But just so you know, that's awesome. Okay, I'm getting the add-ins in now. Miss Martha's moving kind of slow here. I get it done. My little chihuahuas are asking me to go outside. When it gets in the oven to bake, when the first bake goes in, I take them out. Whew. I gotta rest for a second before I make them into the loaves, but the dough's ready, so I might as well clean the kitchen. Okay, the hard work is done. I've got the dough divided into 2 different portions so I can do 2 different bakes. I'm going to have to make them into, I'm going to take each loaf, cut this in half, so I'll have 4 loaves so I can fit 1, 2 on that sheet, 1, 2 on the other sheet. Sometimes, instead of being one long loaf, the length of the pan, because when you try to get it off the pan, if you're rushing, you don't wait long enough for it to cool, it'll crack in the middle. So sometimes I'll do 1, 2 little loaves on this side, 1, 2 little loaves on the other side, so I can get it up easily with my, there's my biscotti spatula. All right, we'll pick back up in a minute once I've got them on the shaped to the loaves that fit the pan. I have them on the parchment paper lined baking sheet. Where's my little topping at? Over here. Don't trip me up, Biscotti. Yeah, I got a little chihuahua named Biscotti. I don't know if I showed him in this video. We'll sprinkle it with its topping. Pick back up in a second. Whew, hard. My loaf's made, so we just have to sprinkle our coarse sugar salt topping on. These will go into the oven to bake for 45 minutes. While they're baking, I'll make my loaves out of my other half of the dough here. Do the same with that. It's kind of heavy, it always is. I just want to show you how beautiful they look. Red velvet biscotti going in the oven. Oh, Jesus, heavy. Okay. I'll set the timer for 45 minutes and I'll make the next batch of loaves. Here's a little Miss Martha tip for you. Because you have, you know, it's not a stiff dough, it's bread dough, or it's refrigerated peanut butter cookie dough. So you want it to be that texture, because if it was drier, your add-ins, your nuts and your chips would fall all out of it. You know, I have my flour to keep it from sticking, but you don't want it coated so much in flour. You want to pat that into it. And that's another reason that the topping, the sugar and salt topping, it keeps the loaves from sticking to each other. Okay. You want to pat it nice and smoothly, because if you leave a lot of cracks in the top of your loaves when you're making them, it's going to crack when you cut it. And you want nice strips. Just so you know, people are afraid to use red food coloring because they think it's going to stain everything, or it's the cancer-causing red food coloring that I had in the 1960s. They've changed the red food dye from what that was. But you could use, you know, when I do vegan, you could try to use beetroot. You got to use red food color if you want a red velvet cake. See, counter cleaned up nicely, hands nicely. Okay, the second tray is ready to go in when the first tray comes out after a 45-minute bake, it'll sit over here on a wire rack and it will cool for 20 minutes, and then I'll slice them into 1-inch thick little slices, and then they'll be on a new piece of parchment paper we put on the cooled baking pan, and they'll be laid down on their side, and they'll go back in and they will bake for another 45 minutes. However, since I'm doing a triple batch here, I have so many that we're doing, when they come out, this will go in and bake for the first batch, and that's okay. So we'll pick back up with you after I have them sliced and they're going in for the second bake, and I'll probably end the video there because I have so many of the little biscottis. I've done several different kinds of flavors, recreating some of my family's favorite desserts and transforming them into biscottis, because my husband, he loves biscotti. It's very filling because of the flaxseed and the collagen and the protein powder in it, so he doesn't feel like he's eating a whole stack of Oreos when he's eating one biscotti. He's getting very few calories, but he's getting a lot of nutritional value from that as well. So I heard the microwave running. I'm melting the cream cheese chips and the stick of margarine. Let's see if that's done yet. Need a little bit longer. I might move this to a saucepan. I'm not sure. You know, there's Pyrex with a capital P and Pyrex with a little p, and I don't want my bowl to explode in the microwave. I might move this to a saucepan and melt my chips. So we'll pick back up in a minute, but I'm going to melt this and I'll add in the powdered sugar for my drizzle. Okay, my chips are melted, my cream cheese chips that is. And I'm stirring in powdered sugar to make my drizzle. My video is running way long, so you get the point. Okay, there's my drizzle. Okay, it's been 45 minutes, so the first batch is getting ready to come out as soon as the timer beeps over there, and then we'll put our second batch in to bake. Ah, here we go. Let's get them. I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. Whew. All right, Miss Martha, don't burn your hands. Those there. Put the second batch in. Whee! Pot holder. Okay, reset the timer. 45. Whew. Here we go. All right. These are what you can see. In my hand. Oops. Okay. Put that pot over back over there. Okay. So these need a good 20 minutes or so to cool and deflate. So those little cracks that you see on the top of it, because it has so many nuts and chips in it. They'll kind of seal back up. Otherwise, it's going to crumble when you try to slice it. So you can't rush yourself. I don't care if you're afraid to think, oh no, I'm going to be in here another 45 minutes for that, and 45. I already told you you're going to be in the kitchen all afternoon, so, you know, should have set aside time for that. I have. My dog's okay, because now now that that's in to bake, I know I've got 45 minutes before that comes out. I've got plenty of time to take the dogs out back and let them play for a little bit and get a little exercise in, and then they'll go back and they'll take another little nap when I'm doing my second bake. So that's still at the 330 degrees. When that finishes its first bake and we take that tray out to cool, we'll turn the oven down to 300 degrees. Make sure it gets to that temperature, and then we'll have sliced these at that time and put those on a fresh piece of parchment paper, and they will go in for their bake. Sometimes, though, you'll note that when you're slicing, if you have extra nice thick loaves, because we have a lot of dough here today, because it's one of my husband's favorite bakes, and I know there's people waiting for it to be shared with them, you might not be able to get them all on one tray. So that adds more time to your time spent in the kitchen. You might have to do 2 different trays on a second batch, but always put fresh parchment paper on your baking sheet. My drizzle is ready to go when that comes back, so we'll pick back up the last of. Thank you for staying with me all this time. We will pick back up when these have cooled sufficiently, and I have them sliced on the tray so I can show you what they're going to look like, how nice and pretty red that they still are with the bake. My red velvet biscotti, with a hint of a classic flavor that was my Grandma Laura's favorite, which were the Queen Anne chocolate covered cherry cordials. Yeah. So I'm thinking about my namesake Laura Agnes Thompson Harris today when I'm baking these. God rest her soul. I know she would have loved these. My husband already snuck in for his little lunch break. He goes, I can smell those in the driveway, coming up the driveway. What is it? And he goes, is it meat? Silly man. I said, no, Bob, it's not meat. Does it smell like meat? He goes, I don't know. I have allergies. You know, that's not fair. Pollen season, I can't tell what. And I said, this red velvet biscotti, I told you this morning what I was going to be doing all day, that you were going to have to call me on the house phone. You can't text me because I'm using my phone to record. So he said, well, can I try some? And this was when I still had the raw dough. And I said, well, it's only 2 eggs, but it's in all 2 eggs are spread between all of this bake, so I think I'll pinch off for you to taste it. I've already tasted it myself, because you know you have to, as a baker or as a cook in anything that you're doing, you always have to taste your thing so you get your seasoning right. So he goes, oh my God, that's fantastic. So I already know it's going to be good. So thank you for watching. We'll come back in a minute when they're sliced, and we'll end the video there, and you can find the whole full recipe up over on Miss Martha Loves to Cook, my digital cookbook page at YouTube. Why do I make a digital cookbook page? Because my mother passed away from Alzheimer's, and my daddy passed away when I was very young. I lost my mother just 10 years ago, but I lost my father when I was only 13, and I only have like 5 pictures of him. So why is I take tons of pictures. If you look at my son's account, he doesn't even use Facebook. It's got one, he doesn't even use it. But I post tons of pictures, because if something ever happens to me, and something will happen to all of us one day, but if something ever happens to me, my son will have plenty of memories of me. He can just sit on that YouTube cookbook page. He can let that thing just run through, put it on autoplay to go to the next one, and it'd be like I'm in his house forever. Make more videos for your kids. Make sure you're in them. You're not the one always taking the pictures. Make sure you're in the videos. Okay, the first batch is out. It's cooled. I'm slicing it now. The second batch has 5 minutes left, still on its bake. I'm just going to show you how beautiful. Now they're going to go on the tray. We're going to go down like this with the inside up to the top with their second bake to finish drying them out, so they'll be the little hard biscotti that people can dunk in your coffee or your tea. Okay. When these come out, I'll turn the temperature down to 300. I'll finish slicing these. These will go in for their second bake, 45 minutes at 300. The second tray will be cooling as time goes on, 20 minutes or so for it to cool. while the others are still baking. I'll slice those, put those on the tray, the other separate tray, and they'll go in when the tray comes out. So I've still got time in the kitchen, but I've done about all the videoing I can do for the day. So thank you for watching, liking, and subscribing. I will change the thumbnail, will be the finished product of all the lovely red velvet biscotti in their glory. God bless.